Well, hello again. This is the 6th of April 2025 and this is another Auti Thoughty. And this one's about work. What do we do for a living? Obviously we have to pay the bills and very few of us are lucky enough to get big inheritances or lottery wins or very rich partners. So what do we do? It's often quite a difficult thing for autistics to find and keep employment. Some of us find our niche. Most of us do not. Most of us find, education and training programs extremely difficult. There's a high pressure environment, the big crowds, the lights, the uniforms, living by externally imposed routines and rules and so on, becomes quite a trial and is extremely off-putting. And even for those, I myself was someone who did extremely well at school in terms of exam results. I did extremely badly at school in terms of everything else. There are those of us who find school just completely freaks us out and kind of turn into troublemakers. And there are those of us who are particularly good at the whole masking thing and make a great effort to be precisely average at everything. And then there is the whole world of job interviews and establishing yourself in a workplace. And when you are the kind of archetypical autistic who doesn't know how to answer questions or start conversations or guess what people want of you, that kind of thing is fraught with all kinds of hazards. And I could not guess how many interviews I've had. I wouldn't be surprised if I've had over 100 job interviews in my life. It's easy to write a CV and a cover letter and fill in all the details on the form and everything. There are correct ways of doing that sort of thing. You sit in front of an interviewer and they ask you, what would your best friend say about you? I don't know what my friends say about me behind my back. Of course, since the last time I actually had a job interview, I've learned that the correct answer to that question is not, oh, I don't know. What do they say about me? What have I done that they might talk about? They want you to say, what are your strengths? Right, it's a roundabout way of saying, what are your strengths? And what do your enemies say about you? I got asked that once as well. What do your enemies say about you? Oh, I dread to think. The thing is, both my friends and my enemies would say probably exactly the same thing about me, which is she's really quiet and a bit weird. But and I'm self-aware enough to know that isn't what interviewers want to hear, right? That doesn't get you a job. But what do they want to hear? Presumably the way the question is worded, they don't want you to say something that's specific to that job. They don't want you to say, I'm very punctual and highly motivated and will make a great addition to your team. Maybe they want to say something like, oh, I'm positive and friendly and I am lots of fun but also down to earth. I don't know. What do they want you to say? I still don't know exactly what you're supposed to come out with as an answer to that. But yes, it's not asking what are people saying about you behind your back. It's saying what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Autistic tropes on telly. I mean, The Bridge was the famous one, wasn't it? Sagana Wren in The Bridge. Then there was the sort of British remake of it, The Tunnel. And then there was one that was kind of a copy of it. I forget the name of it right now, but Reece Shearsmith plays the detective. I think Imitation Game sort of was a little bit more aware, but still to a large extent falls into this category now. They all depict autistic people as the sort of comedy character who always says the wrong thing and rubs people up the wrong way, and doesn't understand how to carry on a conversation and so on. But the brilliant mind that can solve the problem and notice small details no one else can understand and things like that. But then they never actually explain in detail how this sort of ridiculous idiot who, doesn't know when to say please and thank you or hello and goodbye, or even though they're well into adulthood, has managed to get through education and training programs and job interviews and got promotions to get, these really responsible, high-powered, high-pressure jobs where a lot is expected of them. Because, being the sort of comedy archetype autistic person does not get you jobs. It does not get you promotions. Ask me how I know. I don't know, does it affect our ability to drive? I'd be really interested how it affects our ability to drive. Are we particularly good drivers? Are we particularly bad drivers? I mean, I've got, let's think, 18 years no claims bonus. No points on my licence at all. I've been driving, I've been driving since I was 16 actually. And apart from once when I clipped someone's wing mirror and he said he had whiplash. That's the only time I've had any kind of issue driving. Is that the default autistic experience? Are we particularly good at that kind of thing? And I do drive a lot. Me and public transport are not really friends. There's a lot that could go wrong on public transport. Right. As I say, I'm a checkout assistant, okay? I've worked there 14 years. It's a nice enough team, yeah, lots of good people working in my workplace. I have no idea what they think of me. I don't know. Do I have a very tenuous grasp on my position? Do the management think I'm a bit of a liability and they're just waiting for an excuse to sack me? Do they think I'm great? Do they think I'm the best barcode ripper they've ever seen? Do they think of me as a sort of pet weirdo who's a bit of a feature of the place? I have no idea. I have no idea what they think of me. Couldn't tell you. Is there some sort of, staff community that I'm not a part of? Am I considered a important part of the team? No clue. None whatsoever. I do find, talking to other people who've, been late diagnosed autistics, a lot of them sort of pushed into university and professional careers, either by the parents or, they were persuaded by, a teacher at school or something to get into, a good job, and found that they could not handle the pressure at all. It's definitely a recurring theme that we as a group are made to feel that we should be making the most of our talents, of our brains, of our, I suppose you could say, of our special interests, and forced into jobs that we are really not emotionally able to do. And a lot of this is more to do with the job market, what's expected of people, than any sort of economic necessity. The idea of the 40-hour work week, it's a lot less than it was in the Victorian times. We work a lot less than miners did. Have a lot less pressure on us than, the Prime Minister or someone. But when you are someone who is particularly sensitive to that kind of thing, autistic traits do include things like physical pain, fatigue, anxiety, agoraphobia, depression. These things all add up to making us not good fits for the work society that is generally expected of us little minions. I work, I'm contracted to 2 days a week. Right, I do some set hours now. I used to just sort of say, I'm available anytime. Just call me whenever. I'll come in and cover other people's shifts and things, because I wanted the money. I didn't want, the management to think it was being difficult or I might lose my job. But of course now I can use my children as an excuse. I can say, it makes it a lot easier for me to work around my children and so on. And, I sort of felt able to say to my managers that I would like to go down to 16 hours, to 2 long shifts a week. And if you want to put me anywhere else, we'll organise that in advance. And I just feel so much better. It is such a massive relief to actually know what I'm doing in advance, week to week, be able to plan things with my family. I don't know, I'm saying I use my children as an excuse. I'm doing this because, I do not feel that it's a good enough excuse to say that I, as an autistic person, like to be able to plan things. I like to have routine. I like to know what I am doing week to week. I find the sort of pressure on me to sort of smile and chat with customers for 8 hours a day to be very draining. the environment that I work in is very draining on me. And these are not things that I feel are reasonable reasons. I sort of have to tell myself, to tell my manager that it's largely because of, my childcare arrangements. Now, if, as a society, we could give people more flexible working options, I think more autistic people, more neurodivergent people generally, would be much more at ease in workplace as a whole. I mean, since the pandemic, since lockdown, there has been a big move towards working from home, which I think certainly if I was an office worker, I would think that was an absolute godsend. I would kill to work at home if I was an office worker. But again, there's sort of a push to get people back into the offices, where they can be supervised. I don't. What is the reason for getting people back into offices? And I know that there are some issues with people, not having a suitable place to work in their home, or people who don't get things done, or their children and their pets are distracting them all the time and things. But why is there a sort of push amongst employers to get their employees back into offices? I don't know. Is it because they're renting these buildings and want them full? I don't know. But surely then they could just rent half the space and save money. I don't know how it works. I don't really know the economics of running an office. But yeah, things like working from home and contacting people by emails instead of face-to-face and things, they work a lot better for people who have, say, social anxiety or agoraphobia. And yeah, as I was saying, public transport is a difficult one for people who have social anxiety and agoraphobia. Again, whether or not they are autistic. I mean, obviously, autistic people do suffer from these things at a much greater rate than the general population, but, people with social anxiety generally find public transport, find office working, find any kind of workplace, really, very, very difficult. Even things like running your own business, you still have to be able to communicate with other people and to know what other people want, and to deal with your staff, to deal with your suppliers. Even if you have someone else to talk to your customers for you, you still need to, communicate with your employers and get them to do their jobs properly and, keep them happy. And it all takes a lot of mental energy and a lot of social skills. And it's just not something that autistic people as a whole are particularly good at. I mean, yeah, if I could just win the lottery, that would be lovely, If I didn't have to worry about any kind of employment ever again, that would be great. But obviously, that's not something that's particularly likely. I mean, if I could acquire another 9,827 subscribers, I could make my living off this channel. Tell your friends. But again, what's the likelihood of that? I mean, I think sometimes maybe if I sort of invested in some, high quality recording equipment and committed myself to making videos say once a week, and had got them scripted and, you know, cut down to a regular length, yeah, maybe then more people would tune in. Maybe if I made a little studio in my attic and recorded them up there, and yeah, but what's the chances of that versus the chances that I'd just have spent a lot of time and money on nothing? Shall I go through my employment history? No, I won't go through my whole employment history. Suffice to say, before I got my current job, I did once count up, and I had 14 jobs before that. It's kind of one after another, with a few breaks in between. I did have some quite lengthy periods of unemployment. As I say, I cannot guess the number of interviews I have had. And they've all been sort of entry-level customer service, minimum wage type jobs. I have been sacked once. I've had a few sort of temporary jobs, sort of 6 months to a year temporary contracts that did not get renewed. I've had a lot of voluntary jobs, and they can't really get rid of you from them, can they? I have had a couple of 0-hour contracts. I think the second longest stint I ever did was a night shift in a supermarket, and that actually suited me pretty well. You know, we had a couple of hiccups at the beginning because I didn't realise you're not actually supposed to eat the products, even if, you know, they're going on damages, you're not allowed to eat them. And I was very close to getting sacked at one point. But anyway, the manager just decided, I don't know why, he just decided to give me a second chance. Maybe they're a bit desperate for people or something, I don't know. So, yeah, I sort of ended up being there 2.5 years. And it was great, you know, they just gave us the delivery and we put it on the shelves, and we went home. It was great. And we got loads of unsocial hours increments as well. But the thing is, working night shifts permanently, it's something that really messes with your body clock, and you can't really do anything else. You know, even when I had several days off in a row, I'd still be asleep most of the day. And I mean, what do you do when you're awake all night? I sort of mess about on the internet most of the time, watch videos. I don't know. Which again, it suited me for a while, but it wasn't a long-term solution. You know, I sort of dreamed of buying a house and things like, and you know, sort of living. I don't know what I really dreamed of, to be honest. I don't think I was particularly bothered about getting married or having a family at the time. I was just set on buying my own house one day. I think I probably still dreamed of being a comedian at the time, so maybe late nights was something I felt I could work with. But of course, if I was working in the supermarket at night, I wasn't committing to anything else. I don't know. I forget what my life plan was at the time. I think I just didn't really have one because, you know, I was working nights in a supermarket. What can you sort of build from that? And my colleagues were mostly people well into adulthood who'd got older children that were at school, and then they'd work at night and then sleep while the children were at school, and then they'd sort of have an evening when they'd woke up and their children were home, and then the kids would go to bed and then they'd go to work, you see. So it worked out quite nicely for them, I think. And my mum worked shifts as well. She was a nurse. She worked a big mixture of shifts. So quite often we were both working nights, both sleeping in the day. And yeah, that was not too bad. It was, you know, walking distance from where I used to live. So I didn't have to worry about how I was getting there or anything. It was a pretty good job, all in all. But yeah, not one that was for life. And the job I has that everyone says, oh, that sounds really interesting. Oh, well, why did you leave that job? That sounds great. That sounds right up your street. I was an assistant in a biomedical laboratory. It was it was not interesting at all. It was just mind-meltingly dull. Right. It was overwhelmingly data entry. Right, we get all the samples in from all over town, sort them into buckets, you know, which ones were urine samples, which one were stool samples, and so on. And then we'd get all the leaflets that came with them. They all came with a little leaflet with the patient's name and address and so on. And then we'd type them all into the computer, what kind of test they needed doing. And that was it for most of the time. Occasionally, if you're really lucky, you might get to go and open the samples and smear them on a Petri dish, stick a label on. And that was the job. And I did a year of that. I did it, well, I was doing maternity cover, so I was there for a year. And it felt like a prison sentence. Again, it was 5 days a week, 9 to 5. And it just made me feel like my brain was dribbling out my ears. Although what I did find interesting, what I did to pass the time was look at people's names and their dates of birth. Their first names and their dates of birth. And I found that after a few months, I could guess what decade someone was born in just from their first name. The only name that had been consistently popular for the previous 100 years, you know, I couldn't even make a stab at which half of the 20th century they were born in, was James. James. Yeah, so that's how I did that. Anyway, what was I talking about? I was talking about work, wasn't I? Jobs for autistics. Yeah, the idea of autistics thrive on routine is often kind of misinterpreted as, you know, we do really well in things like factory jobs and, well, as I was describing, data entry jobs and things where we're doing the same things over and over. That's not the kind of routine that we are supposed to be good at. Those externally imposed things, you know, some of us can. What is meant by autistics enjoy routine is, ones that we create for ourselves. It's sometimes described by psychologists as ritualistic behaviour. Like, you know, every morning I get up and I brush my teeth and comb my hair and get dressed in that order. You know, it's that kind, that's the routine that we are talking about. You know, when I make a bowl of cereals, I fill it up so full and put so much milk on, and then I use this particular spoon. You know, that's the sort of routine we're talking about. It's not that we really enjoy doing repetitive activities for a living, and any more than anyone else particularly. Repetitive activities are popular among holistics either, are they? And I think stimming as well is sometimes put down as repetitive activity. You know, well, as I'm doing now, playing with my hair, that's something that I do quite a lot. A repetitive activity that I often engage in, just sort of messing with my hair like this. I suppose it's a stim. I have had actually people comment on how often I mess about with my hair. I don't know if it is because I do it a lot, or people just sort of think that, you know, people with long hair messing with their hair is sort of funny. I'm going to leave it there. Comment me with your experience of work. Tell me if you agree, do you disagree? How does work happen for you? What do you think autistics are particularly well suited to? And I will see you in the next one.